In another development, President Donald Trump marked his 79th, I think, birthday on Saturday with the largest U.S. military parade in decades, showcasing tanks, aircraft, and troops in Washington. The event, meant to honor the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, drew sharp criticism from nationwide protesters who accused President Trump of embracing authoritarian theatrics. Trump praised the United States as the hottest country in the world and avoided his usual political rhetoric in a brief address that celebrated the military strength. But the parade came amid deepening turmoil, with tear gas deployed against protesters in Los Angeles and fresh missile exchanges between Israel and Iran. Iran intensifying concerns about U.S. and entanglement abroad. Trump used the occasion to issue extended warning to adversaries, vying total and complete defeat to any threat. Well, I'm now being joined by retired Nigerian diplomat and Ambassador Joe Keshi to look at the significance of these developments, especially the threat of a visa ban on Nigeria and by the Trump administration. Good to have you back on the program, Ambassador Joe Keshi. Thank you for joining us on This Day Live, a Sunday talk show.
And thank you for having me, Ruben. And happy Sunday and happy Father's Day.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Happy Father's Day to you too. But let's start with the Middle East. What are the possible scenarios? In October, 6 months ago, Israel attacked Iran. Iran, US, okay, they tried to prevent the conflict. 6 months after, Israel is the aggressor. He's talking about its national security. The US had been talking to Iran about, okay, nuclear capability, uranium enrichment. The US and its allies say Iran cannot have nuclear capability. And then here we are, Iran has reacted, even if proportionally it looks like Iran is a weaker party of this moment. Now, what are the possible scenarios for global peace and security and geopolitics?
Thank you, Ruben, for this conversation. I think what we are seeing, we need to try and understand what we are seeing today going on in the Middle East. First, what you are seeing happening in the whole of the Middle East is a classical example of the hypocrisy of the West, to start with, led by the United States of America. Donald Trump, for example, the President of the United States, will say to you that the reason why he wants to make peace very quickly between Russia and Ukraine is because 5,000 able-bodied men have died from the war. But Donald Trump has never mentioned the more than 50,000 Palestinians that have died from the genocide being committed against Palestine by Israel. And here you have a situation that Israel has consistently, this is not the first time it would attack Iran, but has for years been targeting and finding every possible excuse to attack Iranian nuclear program. And the question we should ask ourselves is, Israel is a nuclear power. Why did the Americans and the rest of the world, or those who the atomic energy, why did they not react when India became a nuclear power, when Pakistan became a nuclear power, when North Korea became a nuclear power? Why is it that it is Iran that Israel and the United States have ensured that it must not have nuclear capabilities? It is simply because Israel believed that Israel alone must be the superpower in that part of the world. And unfortunately, the disunity or the lack of support or collective behavior of the Arab states have also enabled Israel to become so powerful and so can do what it believes. Israel believes that it can do whatever it likes in the region, not because of the disunity among the Arab states, and also because it has the full support of the United States of America. And unfortunately, the rest of the world have elected to remain silent in the face of this hypocrisy that is going on in the Middle East. It's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, they can destroy Iran's military capabilities as much as they can. History teaches us that the Iranians will find a way to rebuild. Okay? They can destroy, they have killed their leaders, but look, they will appoint new chief of staff. They will appoint new military leaders. As we have seen in Gaza, anytime you kill any of the leaders in Gaza, they appoint somebody else to take over. The question we should ask Israel, how long will you want to be at war with your neighbors? This is over 70 years. Avenues have been created for peace. But under Netanyahu's, when Netanyahu returned to power, he has been obsessed with nothing but destroying any country rising up in that part of the world. Yes, you can blame Iran also for the way it has supported some dissidents against Israel. But when you compare what they've done and what Israel has done, there are no comparisons at all. And that should worry the rest of us all over the world. And that's, for me, why we need to be, why we need to get worried, why we need to be worried about the situation in the Middle East. Nobody knows, what will happen the next day. But the truth of the matter is that I do not see, except somebody steps in. The United Nations cannot step in. The Americans do not want the United Nations to step in. The United Nations does not even have the powers, and the Israelis will not listen to the United Nations. So we are stuck. And until the Americans do a U-turn and decide to find a way out of this crisis, we all are just going to sit down and watch the crisis escalate.
Okay, sir. Well, sir, I would like to ask you, what should we expect? Israel is saying that, look, what they did that Iran saw is nothing compared to what will come. Iran has retaliated. Israel has also retaliated. Where do you see the balance in this? And what is likely to happen? World War III? Because the United States saying that they have a pact with Israel, willingly, they will be drawn into that conflict. Some Nigerians are celebrating, oil price has gone up internationally. Should we be jubilating that we have crossed in the last 48 hours the benchmark? All of these issues together.
I don't think we should be jubilating that, yes, it's our advantage, but sooner or later, when the crisis, resolve itself, we'll probably go back to where we were before. But Ruben, here's my take on your question. We have no idea of how this would end because it's becoming like tit for tat. But what we need to bother ourselves about is that we have two partners. I mean, we have, number one, let me answer the question that there will be no third world war. Let's get that out of the way. Who is going to start the war?
You are very
sure. The Russians are in their own mess. And
are you very sure?
Very sure, very sure.
How?
I'm very sure. The Russians are in their own... Look, let me explain. The Russians are in their own mess, and they are not going to come at this point and begin to defend or support, Iran. Nobody in the Middle East, not Egypt, not Saudi Arabia. The Arab states are too comfortable in their luxury to want to get involved and be destroyed. The Americans and the Israelis have calculated very well that they have the upper hand, and this is why they are prepared to do what they are doing. Somewhere along the line, and I think Donald Trump is beginning to realize that they may need to find a quick way to resolve this before it really gets out of the hand, because the support, the grand support he was hoping he would generate within the American system itself is not as loud as he has expected. So I think that one way or the other, maybe before the next weekend, the Americans will step in and find a way to tell both sides to calm down. But as it is, except Donald Trump can persuade Netanyahu in particular, to stop the retaliation and get the, But again, we need to understand how the Iranians were unfortunately made to be complacent, and they are paying a supreme sacrifice for this. They were meant to believe they were negotiating. They were meant to believe that things will work out well at the end of the day, while the Israelis and the Americans were planning to do what they've just done. And that's most unfortunate. That is called deceit, whether in the international system or, in private behavior. It's absolute deceit, and the Iranians themselves became careless about their own security, and they are paying dearly for it.
Okay, sir. Why do you think that the international checks and balances system is so powerless? The United Nations cannot rein in Israel. The United Nations just talks, but is voiceless. Do you think that we have reached a stage where a body like the United Nations should be declared powerless and irrelevant to the maintenance of global peace, rule of law, and order?
Look, for the sake of the smaller nations of the world, we probably still need the United Nations. But the truth of the matter is that we need to understand that, particularly under the current administration in the United States, Israel from day one cares little about the United Nations or cares little about global world opinion. And the United States has over time enabled and encouraged Israel to violate United Nations rules. All the resolutions that have been passed that would have guaranteed Israel peaceful existence, the Israelis have never liked it. And so they just do not like. The only saving grace is that at least they have not withdrawn from the United Nations, which means that they still believe that they need the United Nations for one reason or the other. But except the world itself, the international community come together and strengthen the United Nations and speak with one voice against what is happening in the Middle East today. Actually, sometimes I do spend time wondering how long the United Nations as it is today will last. Because I think the last few years of the current Secretary General, I might be wrong, but I just think that this current Secretary General, probably has been the weakest Secretary General in the history of the United Nations.
Okay, final question, and I would like you to respond briefly. Donald Trump. In the United States today, we have issues in California. Trump being accused of authoritarianism in other states, from Boston, Massachusetts, to Pennsylvania, to New Jersey, to Houston, Texas. You have Americans trooping out on the streets and protesting on the occasion of Trump's 79th birthday. And they're saying they are not getting a good deal. Very briefly, what do you think?
Well, during the election in the United States, Kamala Harris and the Republicans warned the Americans that elections have consequences. I also remember in 2023 in Nigerians' election, Nigerians were warned that election have consequences. What we're experiencing today in the United States is the failure of voters to listen and to think back of Donald Trump 1, the first 4 years of Donald Trump. They simply forgot. In fact, what is even more interesting, there's this story, Ruben, I'll be brief, of one of the top Hispanic campaigner for Donald Trump. He's among those being deported, you know. He's among those that have been caught up by Donald Trump's desire to send out undocumented immigrants. But he was in the forefront supporting Donald Trump. So all I'll say is that elections have consequences. Voters must learn to listen very carefully to those who want to lead them and make their own informed decision and stop just being parochial either by one thing or the other, but they must listen for their own interests and go and vote based on their own interests, not on the interest of or the belief of the leader they think will save them. So elections have consequences, and the Americans are paying the price for voting Donald Trump, and we wish them good luck.
Well, on that note, I would like to thank you very much, Ambassador Joe Keshi, for joining us on this Sunday Talk Show.